for real change to unfold in our lives, we must wish for others as we wish for ourselves, and do to others as we would have them do to us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not easy to be selfless and magnanimous. Yet, as Madiba so passionately asked for, let us try to be those who not only cast off our own chains, but live in ways that respect and enhance the freedom of others.
Many African countries now spend more on debt repayments than on health care. And our unfair and outdated international financial system is not fulfilling its function as a global safety net. We must recognize that there is an injustice at the heart of that system, an injustice that is rooted in the times of colonialism. The Security Council, the Bretton Woods system, and other international organizations reflect the world of 1945, when many African countries were still part of European empires. To this day, the continent is underrepresented in the global financial architecture, as it lacks a permanent seat on the Security Council. Excellencies, we don't need to wonder what Nelson Mandela would think about this, because he told us, almost 30 years ago, he came to this very podium and argued against what he called the maldistribution of resources and decision-making power. The world is still waiting for that change. Ultimately, we need fundamental reform on our international institutions. But we must also support developing countries with concrete steps that we can take today. Overhauling the business model of multilateral development banks so that they leverage far more private finance at reasonable cost. Providing an SDG stimulus to help to create the world of peace and prosperity for all envisaged in the Sustainable Development Goals. Establishing debt relief mechanisms to support payment suspensions, longer lending terms and lower rates. And at the same time, to make sure that developed countries deliver climate justice, providing the finance that has been promised to help countries reduce emissions, adapt to climate change, and address loss and damage. Every nation must honor the promise of dignity and equality enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that Nelson Mandela has interpreted better than anybody else. And we must all stand with the women, girls, and young people around the world demanding change on issues from gender equality to climate change and more. Excellencies, 25 years ago in this hall, Nelson Mandela reminded us, and I quote, that social ills are not a preordained result of the forces of nature or the product of a curse of the deities. They are the consequence of decisions which men and women take or refuse to take. As we commemorate Nelson Mandela's life and legacy, let us be animated by a spirit of humanity, dignity, and justice. And let us choose to take action to build a better, more inclusive world, the world that he has fought for.
I was visiting in the northern province, and a group of young men who had been sentenced to death for treason had a Thanksgiving ceremony and invited me. When I went there, the judge that had sentenced them to death was sitting next to me. And he did not know why he was there, nor did I. But I watched this drama unfold as the Delmas treason trial and some 20 young men who had spent 10 years in jail with Nelson Mandela referred to Robben Island as Nelson Mandela University. And they said that this is where they got their degree for freedom. And this is where they learned how to govern and how to forgive. Not to forget, but this occasion was people who had spent 10 years with President Mandela, who had been tutored by him. And they gave the judge who sentenced them to death an award and thanked him for one, responding to Bishop Desmond Tutu and commuting the sentence from life and death to 10 years.